Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board the Bernier bus train.
Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. Speaking of Bernie Sanders makes his own media. Presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders has at least one thing in common with President Trump, the feeling he's treated unfairly by the elite media. So Sanders has been increasingly turning to his own in-house live stream show that appears on Twitch. Twitch is a channel with live streams and uploaded videos that mostly gamers frequent. So if you're a gamer, you know Twitch. It's excellent that Bernie is on a medium, on a platform that video gamers would frequent. But Twitch also appears to me to have fewer problems with its algorithms. It doesn't seem to be actively filtering out news about topics that the establishment don't like. So Bernie or bust, I'm going to try to get on there. I noticed that my account is less than a day old on Twitch, so I won't advertise my Twitch account yet. But if Twitch is friendlier towards dissident voices, I hope to maybe lead others there and with Bernie. But in the meantime, go to Bernie's Twitch, go on twitch.com and then find Bernie's live streams there. You'll see Fez Shakir and others talking on there. Some are really fired up and passionate, so I want to promote that. Also, always frequent Common Dreams. That's a platform that's very fair. Common Dreams. And here, this article by Glenn Ford. By trying to silence Sanders, the corporate media delegitimized themselves. And that's the topic of today. Let's listen to Mike again, Figueredo, in his analysis of MSNBC. The reason I stumble on that is because I've gotten used to saying MSDNC. I'll have to practice saying MSNBC if they ever stop being MSDNC. But for the time being, MSDNC is more descriptive of their coverage.
Necessarily the issue. The issue is that they're not talking about him enough. This is one of the frontrunners, right? So you would expect them to dedicate a pretty large amount of coverage to him, at least equal time with Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, but that's not what's happening. And on some of these shows, with how little they cover him, they're covering him mostly in a negative light, with the 11th Hour show, for example.
Right.
So this is the liberal network. When you tune into MSNBC, if you're just a casual observer of politics, you think I can trust them because I'm liberal and they're liberal and they just, everything they say reflects my values, so I'm going to take them at their word. If they say Bernie Sanders is a bad candidate, and if they're not covering them, then maybe I shouldn't take him seriously as well. This is the impact that they're having on the primary.
Yep.
So imagine if Bernie Sanders got the coverage that Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg got. He would be absolutely unstoppable. But
if you went to the polls then, in that case, you would see Bernie dominating the polls. That just with MSNBC or CNN or WAPO or New York Times, if you added all of those together, they would teach the people are trained, the people are propagandized into believing what they see on the news. He's absolutely right about that. And if you don't believe that, look at Noam Chomsky and study Noam's ideas about manufactured consent. If you've watched previous episodes of the Bernie or Buzz Show, you know how it works. Manufactured consent is how they get us to nod our heads. Oh, you're liberal, I'm liberal, hey. We have the same values. I'm going to believe whatever you tell me to believe. And if it's on TV, it must be true. Kate Johnstone a couple days ago, or yesterday, I can't remember, shared excellent points about the imperialist media. Anyway, Mike, carry on.
ostensibly left-leaning network is ignoring Bernie Sanders and not really covering him very favorably. Well, we see that Bernie Sanders is being held back in large part due to the mainstream media. We talked about the surge of Bernie Sanders in the polls and how the media is ignoring that and focusing on Pete Buttigieg's surge. So, I mean, this bias, it's problematic. What we really need to do is bring back the fairness doctrine and mandate equal coverage of candidates, but I mean, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And it's having an impact now. So the least that we can do, really, is educate people about MSNBC and how...
What I would like to see is a labor-sponsored political party and a labor-sponsored media. Labor-sponsored, like, so Bernie has his own Twitch channel. It would be wonderful if it's not state television, but rather some large labor movement that isn't corrupt, because most of our unions are corrupt. But if we had a labor movement that was self-policing, we could have just an alternative to all of the Fox News and CNN and MSDNC. We could have an alternative that people would just go to because they wanted the truth. I don't think we'd have to be forceful or propagandistic. We would just have to start something. I don't know if we need a billionaire to do that. The hard part would be to keep people alive, because if you had a bunch of reporters like Jimmy Dore and Lee Camp on some kind of platform that people could get to easily, they'd probably end up the victims of botched robberies, but that's just my tinfoil hat speaking. All right, Mike, last word.
How they are not fair to Bernie Sanders. They're not left-wing. They're center to center-right. And, I mean, we just have to turn people onto alternative sources of information, you know? Indie media, not just the Humanist Report, but other indie media shows that talk about Bernie Sanders, who is the best candidate if you truly are on the left.
There you go. Thank you, Mike. Now, on the Bernie or Bust show, if you're a subscriber to this channel, this was episode 132, a couple days ago. If you don't like corporate media rigging of the candidate, of the election process, then Bernie or Bust is the answer. So that's why I started this channel, if you want to fix things. And I want to point out, I always talk about the information section below. Let me show you just an example from a couple days ago of how much information is here. You've got all the Bernie or Bust television episodes in one place. This is a friend link, so you can go to this Medium article for free. Then there's the article I just talked about. We've got an argument or an explanation of how the DNC rules work now as compared to in 2016. This is very interesting. Then we've got Warren's chauvinistic approach is why she'll lose to Trump, because she doesn't appeal to regular working class people. Then we got lots of stuff about the Medicare for All plan. If you're a true leftist, Medicare for All is one of your central issues, and Elizabeth Warren and her daughter are dismally failing in that regard. We talk about the global working class, and The Hill Rising is an excellent place to check that out. So what we have is a list: Kyle Kulinski, Howard Gleckman, Matt Brunig, Jordan Cheriton. I forgot who made this video, but it exposes the Young Turks and their funding $20 million from the Clinton machine. It's interesting that Cenk came out in support of Bernie Sanders, but he's still a sheepdog. He can support Bernie Sanders all the way up until they rig it for Elizabeth. And then what do you think he'll say? And I know what Emma Vigeland will say. And I know what Anna Kasparian will say. They'll just try to wave their hands in front of the sheep's faces and say, "Hey, sheep, go on over to the corporate candidate." Here's Wiki-Proof that the Clinton machine was behind the flood of new Democratic presidential hopefuls. That's a good read. What is neoliberalism? A lot of people on the left who don't have time to dig through all of these information sources, they could check this out. It's excellent information. And then on Facebook, you can follow Bernie or Bust Television. Revolt against Plutocracy, which is the foundation, the beginning of the Bernie or Bust movement. Got all kinds of stuff. Buy a bumper sticker. Friend me on Facebook. Let's have lots of conversations about this stuff. Most of all, what we're trying to show is MSNBC is not even attempting to hide their contempt of Sanders, and we're trying to show that they have a huge influence over the primaries because their average age of viewer is, or their median age of viewer is 65 years old. And older voters vote in primaries at a far higher rate than younger voters. So if we want to unrig the process, if we can't unrig MSNBC, we're not going to win, because people will just listen to what they're told on MSNBC and they will obediently go and do that. The coverage quickly revealed a pattern. Over the 2 months, these 6 programs focused on Biden, often to the exclusion of Warren and Sanders. Sanders received not only the least total coverage, less than 1/3 of Biden's, but the most negative coverage. As to the substance, MSNBC's reporting revolved around poll results and so-called electability, which they're trying to shape. The more they tell you that someone's electable, the more electable they become. It's a vicious circle. So that's what's going on. Now, let's talk about Elizabeth Warren, and we'll close. I can't let more than a day or two go by without showing you who she really is. And Kyle Kulinski, Graham Elwood, Tim Black, obviously Tim Black. You got to watch Tim Black's coverage of Elizabeth Warren. Jimmy Dore. They all have really cogent things to say about Elizabeth Warren that you should watch. Here's just an example.
So Elizabeth Warren was at the National Press Club, and she dodged a question in a really, really clunky way. Take a look.
Sam Husseini with The Nation and the Institute for Public Accuracy. Cortez, who was mentioned earlier, and other likely incoming congressional, likely incoming...
This is so disgusting. I'm going to just summarize it for you. I can't even watch her. But, well, I'll let you watch a little bit. The gist of it is he's asking her about military funding and about Palestinian children, which are her weakest areas. And then she doesn't answer. She's excellent at not answering. But,
Congressional members next year propose slashing the military budget to help pay for human and environmental needs. Do you agree?
That's a simple question. Do you agree? Slashing the military to help pay for human and environmental needs. Oh, she could say, yes, I'm in favor of that.
And if I could, a second question, would you consider introducing and sponsoring Betty McCollum's bill on Palestinian children's rights?
Palestinian children's rights. She could say, yes, I am. I will co-sponsor that bill. What does she say instead?
The Senate.
So I now sit on armed services. And boy, I have been in the middle of the sausage making factory.
What does that mean?
And that has pushed me even more strongly in the direction of systemic reforms. I want to be able to have those debates. I want to be...
Do you know what systemic reforms means? That's finger wagging. That's let's have a plan for that. But it's not going to do anything.
Able to get them out in the open and talk about these core issues that affect our government, affect our people. I want to be able to debate them on the floor of the Senate. I want to be able to do amendments on them. Right now, the hold of big money over our government stops much of that. It chokes off much.
That's because they own your ass. It stops it because you aren't willing to thwart them.
Much of the debate we should have. So I'm going to give you a system-wide answer because I think that's what matters here. This is not about one particular proposal. This is all the way across. How is it that we get the voices of the people heard in government instead of over...
That's your biggest weakness. You know how we get the voices of people heard in government. We mobilize labor. And we don't just have a plan for that. We actually go to the rallies, we go to strikes, we go to protests, and we go to Standing Rock, and we go to Occupy Wall Street, and we get behind all the protest movements. And we change things from the ground up. wave our fingers at the big people at the top, they're not going to do anything until we demand it.
Over and over, the voices of the wealthy and the well-connected, the voices of those who can hire armies of lobbyists. So
they've hired you. You are the recipient of donations from billionaires. And you're willing to take dark money in the general election. You are one of the people they own. You're owned by talent agency executives. Michael Kives, ask Michael Kives, who owns your ass?
So for me, that's what this is about.
That was the worst dodge I've ever seen. The question was so straightforward and so simple, and she couldn't answer it in a plain way.
There's a reason for that.
She was asked about cutting military spending to fund, domestic priorities, and she was asked about a specific bill that protects the rights of Palestinian children. You want to know how you answer that? If you are in favor of cutting military spending and are in favor of protecting the rights of Palestinian children, here's how you answer it.
Tell us.
Yes, I'm in favor of that bill and I'll co-sponsor it, and yes, I want to cut military spending.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you got to do. That's it. That's it. That's it.
Damn straight.
If she answered like that, perhaps we'd be doing this segment to give her credit. To be like, oh, well, that was straightforward and she's on the record now. She wants to protect the rights of Palestinian kids and she wants to cut military spending. But she doesn't want to do those things.
She doesn't want to do those things.
She's not good on the issue of Israel-Palestine. She's a standard establishment Democrat on that issue.
Yep.
And on the issue of military spending, she voted for Donald Trump's monstrous increase in military spending.
There you go.
Guys, you got to understand how wild that is. The entire Democratic Party says, wow, Donald Trump is a thin-skinned moron, a buffoon. He doesn't have the temperament for this position, and his finger should be nowhere near the red button, and he should not be the one to control our great military. They say that, and then they turn around and voted to give him a bigger military than he even asked for, and they authorized more NSA spying powers for him. To be fair, I don't know how Warren voted on that part, the NSA part, but she voted for his increase in the military spending.
She did.
So, in other words, the biggest criticism that the left has against Elizabeth Warren, she just said in no uncertain terms, oh, that criticism is totally merited, and you shouldn't trust me on foreign policy.
Yeah.
That's what just happened.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what just happened. Oh, don't trust me on foreign policy. No, I'm really bad on that.
Yeah. You'll hear her say that, I'm sure, in her next press conference. Anyway, that's all I got. Keep watching Kyle. Keep watching me. Keep watching people who argue with MSNBC and their horrible brainwashing indoctrination. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Keep on burning and keep on busting.
Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board